Good evening. This is our Saturday night gala dinner keynote address. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What a pleasure. And yes, I'm wearing a gold lame shirt. And take a picture. It's not going to happen again. I did this for Paula. They didn't have a suit in my size. Jacques Vallée and Paola Harris wrote a book that this year changed things. And it's a bestseller. I have read it. And when the book first released, Paula and Jacques called me up and said, we want to come on Fade to Black and we want to announce this book on your show. And I watched it absolutely run ripples through the UFO community. Everybody's been talking about it. Tonight is a very special treat. And as I get through this, I want to watch this presentation that we're going to bring up on the stage. And this is Trinity. The 2021 StarWorks USA Conference here in Laughlin, Nevada, UFOs, all the above and beyond, our Saturday night keynote address featuring Paola Harris. Paula, come on out. Paula, thank you for everything. What a great event. Jacques Vallée. Jacques Vallée, come on out. And a very special moment for all of you. Sabrina Padilla, the niece of witness Jose Padilla, is with us tonight. And I'm going to go finish my plate of delicious food and listen to what is about to go on. Thank you, everybody. Here we go.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Because it's a very special night. A lot of these things that you've seen here, it's a one-time deal. We maybe not experience this moment again, but I want to say that the emergence of the book Trinity in May for Jacques and for me was a highlight of our careers. I had talked before about the fact that we collaborated on this case. To begin with, this was a case I began 9 years ago because I heard about it when I was in Italy. And the son of the pilot, and Jacques will talk a little bit about the pilot, that flew over this particular area had called me. And when he told me about the two little Indian boys, and they're not Indian, they were not Indian, they're Hispanic, that watched this craft that he had seen from the plane, I asked him, do you know where they are? And he gave me the telephone number of what was the 6-year-old, Remy Baca, who has since passed away in 2013. But it was a gold mine because I knew I had to get to him as fast as possible. I knew I had to get the story as quickly as possible. Remy at that time had diabetes. And we, and I had done that part of the work because Jacques hadn't met Remy, but he read the transcripts. Jaime Maussan had filmed Remy, so did Swiss Television, so we have that testimony because we need it. Those two little boys, the 9-year-old Jose Padilla and Remy Baca, hadn't talked or seen each other for over 50 years. What had happened was, serendipitously, they had connected through a genealogy search that Jose Padilla's son Sammy did. That's how they connected. When that happened, then I could do the story with both of them. And when I lost the one, then I could work with the other. I did not know about this lady until 2 years ago. And how did I find out about this lady? And I'll let Jacques explain who she is. Jacques and I were talking to Jose near his home, near La Jolla in New Mexico. We had been there like maybe 6 or 7 times, and we had been there. You see pictures of Jacques talking to Jose in the field, and we had been to his house, and we had been there so often. And this is why it takes so long. We were just sitting there talking to him again, and he said, I had a niece whose name is Sabrina, who lived with my father and mother, and she knew about what happened here. And we said, where does she live? And Jose said she's in Los Angeles. And we looked at each other at the same minute, and we said, oh my God, there's another witness. So when we went to question her, we both flew to Los Angeles to question. You remember we went to dinner, and we questioned her. We found out she had information that Jose had no idea about. The reason why I'm telling you these details is because it takes work. It takes going back there 5, 6, 7, 8 times, having the conversation when new things come up. So we are very honored that Sabrina agreed to be with us. Jose couldn't because he can't fly. When the atomic bomb did explode, his mother opened the door because they were not told what was going to happen. She was blinded in one eye at 4 o'clock in the morning. She said, even Jose said, it was like the light of 1,000 suns. You can imagine that blast. No one knew. She opened the door. She's blinded in one eye, and Jose lost the hearing in one ear. He was a child at the time. A lot of damage without even going into details. So the thing is that the book is historical. Thanks to Jacques, who did all the historical background and the context with which this happened. So it isn't like something happened and that's it. Jacques goes through the whole history of what was going on back then, which meant, and I'm going to add this really fast because people that don't read, he began to read about the Japanese part of World War II, and then he'd call me and say, read the book. So I was reading 5 books that he was reading so I could understand what he was going to write in our book. And the thing is that this is what's called research. You just don't slap a book together with superficial stuff. And we learned a lot about World War II. We learned a lot about Socorro. We learned a lot about the area. And I think the book is a great read because of your style of writing, Jacques. It's a wonderful read. So I'm going to let him take over because he can tell you some of the background of what happened on August 18th, 1945. And then you can interact with Sabrina.
Sure. We're all interested in UFOs for a number of reasons. My colleagues in Silicon Valley are increasingly interested in, obviously, in the technology. we are all, as researchers of this area, fascinated with what's happening now in Washington and elsewhere, now that the stigma has been removed from the entire phenomenon. So what people talk about these days is either about technology or about the politics of the... That's not what has been the most important for me, even though I've been part of some of those committees and I've tried to work within science to promote the study of this kind of case. What's important to me and to Paola is the people. The people who are there, what they experience. I'm an experiencer myself, so I can relate to someone like Sabrina and what she has seen and what she's experienced in that particular part of the country. That's where we have to start. The rest of it passes, changes, and so on. The case, I've been accused of not paying enough attention to crashes of UFOs, especially in New Mexico, where there are lots of stories. The stories are interesting. I used to discuss them with Dr. Hynek and with other colleagues. But every time we spoke to physicists about doing research, they said, well, give me something I can take to the lab. Give me something or show me something that I can apply, my tools, my intelligence to advance the problem. Otherwise, yeah, it's an interesting story, I believe you, but, so what? This particular case breaks that rule. I mean, this was the first case where the witnesses were alive. The witnesses had already been interviewed by Paola. We had something to work on. We had the access to the land. And there were a number, about a dozen items that were unique to that case. What was the most interesting to me was that the witnesses were there before the craft. They saw it arrive. There were physical correlations. The object came in, and it came in from White Sands, and from the direction of White Sands, and it hit a communication tower and cut off communication over the north end of the range where the first atomic bomb had been exploded a month before, okay? This was part of the extended territory of White Sands, of Project Manhattan. Now, to me, as a scientist, I mean, this is something I have to pay attention to. This is something that's unique in the whole history of UFOs, which, as you know, I've spent, my white hair comes from spending over 60 years researching cases like that in the field. The witnesses were there. This was on their land, on the land of, the Padilla family. And they were very familiar with the land. The two were, children, 7- and 9-year-old. They were on horseback, taking care of the cattle on a very large ranch, where they were responsible for maintaining the fences, making sure that the cattle was all right, and so on. Around that time, there was a cow that was expected to calve, and they wanted to make sure that the animals were secure, they were in good health, and so on, and could be branded, and so on. So that's what they were doing at the time when this object came out from the south, hit the tower, took down the communication from the tower. The tower was still standing, but not communicating anymore with pilots over the range, the north end of White Sands. And then the two witnesses saw the object over their head and land, crash, but it was a controlled crash. The object didn't break up like an airplane would have. It kept its integrity, which is amazing, and plowed a boulevard all the way down the hill. So this was a heavy object, and it kept its shape. It made a turn apparently under power, which also is unique, and stopped against a berm in the land. The Alamogordo Air Force Base called a pilot named Brody. So people have reacted to that by saying, you're making up a story. I mean, you're believing these two kids. I mean, who can believe a 9-year-old kid who tells you a story like that? Well, number one, we have the privilege of seeing what they're done with their lives and the courage that they've had and how they carried themselves. And we've had, cross interrogation of them on many, many levels. And so when I came in, I had the privilege of having the records from Paola's interviews of them. And then we have the records from the pilot who was asked to look at the tower, saw the damage to the tower, saw the two kids, and saw the object that had so-called crashed in the landscape and made a report to Alamogordo. We also have, at the other end, we have the report from Remy Baca, whom you interviewed, who told you that he had seen in the records of the Atomic Energy Commission, he had been shown an official report from the investigation of the case. And we'll have a lot to say later about exactly where that would go. The question that you will have, which is a good question, is why didn't the witnesses speak? Why didn't they tell the story for 60 years? And why is it that my colleagues, for example, who are, as you know, I've worked with a number of research groups, with Mr. Bigelow, with people from the Pentagon and so on, they've never heard of this case. Where did it go? Where did the object, where was it taken, and how was it kept? How was the secret of that material kept? So we're not surprised that many of our colleagues in ufology are saying, you're making up this story because there is no record of it anywhere. We will explain to you why there is no record of it anywhere. Do you want to?
Well, the thing that's interesting is that when you're talking to these two boys separately, Remy, who was 6 years old, and Jose, who's your uncle, who was 9 years old, they act like boys act. They saw the crash, or they saw this vehicle. They thought it was a second, I think Jose said, I thought it was a second atomic bomb because of the noise. And they went down and they saw the smoke. It was not on fire, but the mesquite was on fire. And the boys were very close to the craft. And what they saw was that there was a panel missing, and they saw three little beings with long arms, some people think it's a mantis being, but I'm convinced they were more gray beings with very large insect-type eyes. And these three beings, your uncle uses the word, were sashaying back and forth, which means floating. What was important was that Jose heard them make a cry, and he uses two metaphors, like a crying baby or a rabbit when you shoot a rabbit and it's dying. High squeal, high pitch sounds. So the 9-year-old Jose, your uncle, thought he should go in and help them. He thought they were hurt. Now, these are two kids in 1945 who do not know the term UFO. They have never heard of Kenneth Arnold because that's 2 years later. They have never heard of Roswell. They think it's an airplane. And it is not shaped like a flying saucer. It's shaped like an avocado. So they don't know what they're looking at, and they don't know what kind of beings they were. Because on one level, Jose called them little men, or homocitos, small men. And he said they were kids like us, or they were the same height as we were. We asked the obvious question, was there any exchange between you? Did you have any exchange? And when I interviewed Remy, and this is so interesting to me, he said that he was given a vision, and this is New Mexico, you know, Socorro in the desert, of people falling out of a skyscraper. This is 1945. Remember the message today about nuclear? You know, people falling out of a skyscraper. And of course, he's never seen a skyscraper. He's a 6-year-old kid and that lives in the, you know, in farm country. And then the other boy, Jose, said he had dreams, something about clouds. So there was a psychic interaction between, and what can you do with children, you know? And it's very interesting because there's the reason why we have Sabrina here, and this is of interest to Jacques, so I'll go back to him in a minute, is because when this happened and that this craft hit the tower, it spewed out at least 10 pounds of what they call spider web that you ended up, that was like a very light-colored filament that was all lit up, right? And what did these kids and her do? They trimmed the Christmas trees with it in their house. So Jacques and I were laughing. We're going, if they ever do a movie, they're going to see them just 10 pounds of this stuff all over the Christmas tree. Because you didn't know what it was, and it was lit up. It was all lit up in purple, and I'll let her tell you. Because you know why I'll let her? Because she touched it. She had it in plastic bags in her house.